Farm credit system has always been there for me. I remember my first PCA loan in 1961 and my first land bank loan in 1971. I've seen the difference that a strong farm credit system can make, and that's why it was so important in 1987 to get legislation to put the system back on its feet, to make the system part of the solution.
From as far back as 1917 and on through the Great Depression, the farm credit system has been a friend and partner to agriculture in all parts of the country. But in the last 3 years, however, this relationship has been strained by economic forces and policies beyond the system's control. Since the system reported its first ever system-wide loss in 1985, employees and directors have worked long and hard to bring the situation under control without outside help.
Despite our best efforts to stem the impact of the devastating agricultural depression, the hard fact remains that certain banks and associations don't have enough capital to see their way through.
On January 6th, President Reagan signed legislation that assures the farm credit system will have the financial resources necessary to carry out its mandate, to provide farmers, ranchers, and their cooperatives with a dependable supply of competitively priced credit in an increasingly competitive market.
Well, today's signing of the Farm Credit Act should help alleviate some of those woes. The Act ensures that the farm credit system will continue as a principal source of private credit to America's farmers, while at the same time implements many needed reforms to the system to ensure its long-term viability.
The bill that the President signed meets virtually all of the system's legislative objectives. These objectives were developed with input from the district banks and the local associations. We wanted every farmer and rancher who had the ability to regain his financial strength to be given a chance to do so. We wanted to protect the stock of our 600,000 member borrowers. We wanted financial assistance for system entities that needed it, with the understanding that the system would eventually repay it. We paid back government capital before, and we intend to do so again.
At the same time, the system's legislative committee sought to preserve the long-term future of the farm credit system as a farmer-owned and controlled source of credit and to resolve system litigation related to capital sharing.
Our objective was to achieve legislation that would make the system strong and competitive. And with the 1987 Act in hand, I believe we can achieve those objectives. And that's good for borrowers as well as employees.
I believe that it will make my job much more enjoyable. I won't have to defend the system. I can now begin to shift my focus back towards the farmer and what his needs and wants are.
It does the same thing for the farm credit system as it does for the individual borrower. It gives them the time and the funds to get back on their feet.
I think there are some points in there that we like and some points that we don't like. It's a relief in a way that it's over finally, that it is set. However, one of the big unknowns is how it will be interpreted.
The Agricultural Credit Act of 1987 was passed by the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives with overwhelming support. Few legislative initiatives have been given more thought and deliberation.
Congress has done its best to ensure that the 1987 legislation benefits farmers, ranchers, and their cooperatives. Congressmen and senators listened patiently to all sides and viewpoints in crafting final consensus legislation. It was clear from the beginning that this legislation would be far more than simply a bailout of the farm credit system. This is landmark credit legislation that affects all farmers and farm lenders, not just those identified with the farm credit system, for generations to come.
Indeed, the 1987 Act is a sweeping piece of legislation designed to help farm lenders help farm borrowers.
We're member-owned and member-controlled. Farm credit will go farther than any other institution in agriculture to try to help them get through the good times and the bad.
It's my feeling that the merger of the PCAs and the Federal Land Bank Associations provide the new joint office with a unique opportunity to do a tremendous amount of marketing.
I think one of the things that we should be concentrating on is redoing our massive amounts of paperwork and consolidating them like they're consolidating the system. And we need to spend more time on contacting the membership, talking with them, finding out what's going on there, doing the kind of work that we're meant to do.
Here's a rundown of some of the more important provisions. The 1987 Act provides up to $4 billion in financial assistance for financially troubled farm credit banks and associations. This financial assistance will be raised by a newly created Financial Assistance Corporation through the sale of federally guaranteed farm credit securities. All financial assistance will be distributed by a newly created Federal Assistance Board.
The Federal Assistance Board will oversee the use of all government financial assistance and will work with banks and associations that receive such assistance to ensure that it is used effectively and efficiently to benefit farm borrowers. The Secretary